Welcome to the Mindrise Podcast, the catalyst that takes you from who you are right now to all that you can become.
All right. So as I promised, we are talking about comparison today. And comparison is an interesting trap. For some of us, we get stuck in comparison when we are looking at other people around us, or we are on this box right here on our phone, scrolling, right? And social media will tell us that everybody has better abs than we do. Everybody's making better dinners than we are. Everybody's relationships better than ours. Everyone is taking sexier vacations than we are taking. And we either feel jealous or we compare ourselves. And they say, you can never compare yourself, your real deal every day, waking up, being you self with what you're seeing on somebody's highlight reel. Okay, yes, totally true, right? But we're grown. We're grown and we know that there is more to the picture. There's always more to the picture. One of the things I sometimes get a kick out of, which I'm saying this, I'm sharing this, don't stop sending me Christmas cards. But, we look at people's Christmas cards and everyone thinks, oh my gosh, like what an amazing moment. And I remember my assistant, Kristen, who's one of my favorite people on the planet. She sent me this beautiful Christmas card. And I'm like, gosh, they look so like gorgeous and tan and relaxed. And like they're in their holiday sweaters, but at the same time, they just have this golden glow around them. And she's like, no. What you need to know behind the scenes was that I booked that photo shoot on a day that I didn't realize was going to be 83 degrees. I've got my two toddlers in sweaters, my husband in sweaters. I've got this kid melting down. I've got this kid who was vomiting the day before, and everybody's sweating. Everybody's uncomfortable. Everybody absolutely hates this photo shoot. And I loved the realness of that moment and of that story because it's true. And I'm looking at this card and everything says that they are happy and healthy and gorgeous and fabulous and everyone is wonderful and they're kumbaya and namaste and all the things. And then there's the real deal. So sometimes we get in this comparison trap of, yes, we look at other people's highlight reels, we look at their Christmas cards and we're saying, they have what I wish I had, or they have so much more, or they have it all figured out. All right, that's one version of the comparison trap. The other version of the comparison trap that I particularly get myself stuck in is comparing my right now to my once was, right? And I found that this is particularly unique to me, entering the fourth floor of life, being in my 40s, when I would look back and I'd be like, oh, well, I used to, right, do this or do that. So in particular, for me, where I was feeling really stuck was in the past when I had launched the company and everything I felt like everything I was doing was turning to gold. Everything was electric. I just couldn't get it wrong, which was shocking to me because I had no prior experience in terms of running a business. Prior experience, obviously, in being a therapist, but in running a business, the only other business I had before this business was, well, I had two businesses. One was a lemonade stand that actually sold mud that had leaves and rocks in it because I thought that lemonade was played out. My neighbor gave me $5. I was 6 or 7 years old. I thought that I hit the lottery. I closed up shop. I only needed that one sale for the day. The other business that I had was going door to door. I was probably, I don't know when my mom would have been cool with me going around in a wagon, but it was probably 9 years old maybe. And I had a greeting card business and I made all these greeting cards that were niche, right? Sorry your brother was mean to you, sorry you broke your arm. And I had all these greeting cards that I had made and I put them in a wagon. I dragged my sister who actually had a broken arm. She was 6 years old at the time, 5 or 6, and dragging her around the neighborhood with me to door sell these cards. That was really my only business experience before starting this company. So I share that with you because it was at the time when I started the business, it took off and it kept taking off. And it felt like every decision I was making was right. And every chance I was taking was right. I equate it to being a little kid on the ski slopes, just bombing the mountains, just going for it. No poles, no experience of failure, just going for it. And we've all had that version of things happening in your life. And it was great. It was great. I was flying everywhere to speak everywhere. I was running 6 different mastermind groups at once. I had a full book of clients. I was also teaching people how to become coaches while also having my own team of coaches coaching their clients. I had a huge team. And that felt really good. I'm on the cover of a magazine. I'm launched this book. I'm launched that journal. I had not one but 2 podcasts going at the same time. It was like everything I touched was electric. Everything was alive. Everything was lit up. And I just couldn't get it wrong. And it felt so good, right? Here I am measuring the amount of people that we're impacting. I'm measuring the size of the team and how it keeps growing. I'm measuring my bank account and it all looks amazing, right? Invitations to speak here, invitations to speak there. I'm flying in and there's people holding my name on a sign and it feels great, right? So that was how I defined success in this business. Interestingly enough, though, that while I did all of those things, and I loved all those things, I absolutely loved it. There's plenty of selfies on my social media to prove back in the day that I couldn't have been happier. And when I would journal about the future, I would journal about this other life. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this life, but I want to pause right here to show you that at that time, I didn't have anything to compare what I was navigating to. Like, could have compared it to my lemonade stand? No, that wouldn't be realistic. I didn't have anything to compare what I was navigating at that time. So everything was just skiing for the first time, bombing the mountains, going for it, taking risks, and not even having the slightest clue about what a crash might feel like. And then we have life, right? We have different layers of life, whether the layers of life come by way of our career, whether they come by way of our successes, our failures, launches that work, launches that don't work, people that leave the team, people that join the team, the ebb and flow. We also have the ebb and flow of our own life, relationships that work or relationships that don't work out, and, having kids and all the rules of the game changing. What once worked with them last week doesn't work this week and is certainly not going to work for the version of them that they are a year from now, right? Things are always evolving and changing. And from this vantage point, so here I sit, 43, and I'm able to look back and compare a life and a definition of success from a different version of myself. But the tricky part, the trap, is I'm comparing it to right now me. And they say, and I'm going to say it a couple times on this episode, but they say that comparison is the thief of joy, right? And it feels like something that somebody like, I don't know, embroidered into a pillow or put on a bumper sticker. But there's a truth here because what I hadn't realized that while I'm comparing my right now me, or even of the last like 2, 3 years, comparing post-pandemic, like what life looks like now, while I was comparing and finding that the measurement had changed. And I was finding that I was using that same measuring stick, but it didn't fit the life that I had built for myself. And I think that that's an important aspect to talk about when we're talking about a comparison trap, because I kept holding up an irrelevant measuring stick. It was an old life. It was an old version of things. It wasn't a bad version of things. And even right now isn't a bad version of things, but it's just different. And what I found was in that comparison, it was stealing my joy. It was stealing my presence. It was stealing my art. And I recently been suggested a book called The Limit Doesn't Exist by Shoshana Raven. And I started listening to it. And at first I was listening and I'm like, wow, like, gosh, I feel like I'm stepping back in time. Like everything she's saying feels very much like a previous version of me. And oh my gosh, like, I need to wake up. I need to go back and do that all again because I know how to do that. I know how to run 6 mastermind groups at once. I know how to launch books and podcasts while also hosting retreats all over the world at the same time. Like I know how to do those things. And that's how I define success. And that's what my bank account looked like. And that's what the amount of people that we served or the size of our team was. So I'll just, I'll go back and do that again. Wrong, like wrong. But one of the things that she said in the book that I is a nugget that's sticking out to me and as I want to share with you is, and I'll put the book link and everything in the show notes, but um, was it she said treating our life like art. And when we're in a space of comparison, whether we are comparing previous versions of ourselves or we're comparing what we see on people's Instagram or social media, when we are doing that comparison, whether with ourselves or another, it is stealing our joy. It is stealing our ability to be present, present in the here and now, present in the simple things. So it's interesting. I'm going back to the story that I told you that I would come to, is back then. So we're talking like 2018, 2019, 2020 version of me. When I would sit and journal, right, with this, again, with this great life, super abundant, like all the good stuff is happening. And when I would sit and journal about what life looked like 5 years from now, and I didn't do it from a place of like, oh my gosh, like this is so hard. And I just, someday. No, no, no. Like honestly, where that came from for me was, making a 5-year plan, right? I made a 1-year plan. I made a 5-year plan. I've been making 5-year plans all along and during my business, and those things were all coming to fruition. So I found it interesting when page after page reflecting in my journal, I was writing, in 5 years, I'll see clients 2 to 3 days a week. In 5 years, I'll do most of my work overlooking the water. In 5 years, I'll spend more time writing books and I'll spend more time like slowing down. I was like, that's really weird, right? Like here I am writing all these things, it's coming from the pen in my hand. And at the same time, I'm questioning him. Like, this is so strange because why would I want to stop the momentum of the train that I was on, right? Because it gave me all of these markers of success. That measuring stick I was using at that time really worked, right? And it wasn't that that measuring stick was ever wrong, but it evolves. And that's my point to you. Whether you are comparing yourself today from a previous version of yourself, whether it's previous version of yourself, like what jeans you fit in, or how fast you could run a mile, or what your career looked like, or what your relationship looked like. If you're comparing yourself now to your previous version of yourself, or if you're comparing yourself right now to what you're seeing or perceiving in other people's lives, it is stealing your presence and your joy, and you are measuring the wrong thing, right? You need a different tool to measure because that tool, while it once served you, doesn't have the proper measurements. It's like, I don't know, taking a 12-inch ruler to England and they're going to be like, oh, what do I do with this thing, right? Because we're in the metric system over here. Same thing, same thing when we are stuck in that comparison trap. So, what do we do about it, right? What do we do about it? And this is a large part about what the new book, yay, is about. And it's called Wrecking Ball Revolution. And the first part of the book, so what the book does is it takes you through the ACON method. And the ACON method is awareness, change, ownership to develop our new normal. And I'm going to tell you the whole story of what happened from 2020 to 2025, 26, right? I'm going to take you through what all that looked like in my life and the lessons that I learned in that space of changing the measuring stick, changing how I was living my life. I'm telling you, I sat there in the height of what felt like success for me at that time, right? Everything I've been touching is turning to gold. And I'm writing about this 5 years from now version of myself with no evidence. Like I wasn't living on the water. I lived near the beach, but in my vision, I held that I was overlooking the water while writing, while journaling, while reading, while slowing down. And it is so interesting to me because the truth is that at that time, I was going 100 miles an hour, which felt good, which was what that version of my life needed. But I was going 100 miles an hour and I didn't have time to read. I didn't have time to slow down. I would write about this 5 years from now. I'll be picking my daughter up from school and dropping her off at school. I will be able to be present to support the classroom. I'll be able to start doing pottery. Like, I don't know, back in like 2018, 2019, 2020, like that version of me, she didn't have time to like, I don't know, read Twitter. Like I had no time to do any of that. Pottery? Like, are you kidding me? Even right now, like this afternoon, I'll be going over to the school so that I can help with their running program. And why? Because I built my life differently. And that's one of the tools of coming out of the comparison trap. And just like the title of my first book, owning your power, right? So when I talk to you about the ACON method, it is about that first step of awareness. Because when we want to own our power, when we want to change our life, when we want it to look differently or even feel differently than it does right now, the first ingredient has to be awareness, right? Like, yes, I wrote the book Own Your Power. And it's true. And those steps work and the tools all work and they're relevant. And in order to access anything, we need to start with awareness. And awareness can be both delightful and painful as hell, right? And the reason for that is because awareness is where we take an inventory. We take an inventory of what's working. We take an inventory of what's not working. We take an inventory of how we would like it to be instead. We take an inventory of like what's working and what's not working in our world. And sometimes that's really hard. It's really hard to look in a mirror. And the only way we can access change is from that place of awareness. People come to me and they want to change things, right? They want to change things. They want to own their power. They want to do it. They want to achieve those goals. And I'm like, great, let's do it. We need to start with awareness. If we don't start with awareness, nothing actually changes. And if it does change, it's kind of like eating cotton candy and saying you're full. Like you're not full. You're not satiated. Right? The change doesn't last. So that's the invitation in today's episode and talking about the comparison trap is let's start with awareness. Where are you comparing? Are you comparing previous versions of yourself? Are you comparing with others? Are you comparing career? Are you comparing personal life? Are you comparing your body, your sleep, your vacations, your kid? I mean, like, where are you comparing? Because while I'm talking a lot of smack about comparison, there is one beautiful thing about comparison that I do kind of like, and it's the same thing that I like about jealousy, is that it gives us a little indication of what we'd rather be having, right? So, yes, I can say that there was times when I would see other people being able to take up hobbies or other people being able to pick up their kids or other people being able to volunteer or other people like reading books, people like reading books. I remember when my assistant had told me about this app that she had, and I think it's called Booklist, probably is called Booklist, and I forgot it by now. But and she said, "Oh yeah, I put that book on Booklist." I'm like, "What's Booklist?" And she's like, "Oh, the list of all the books I have." I was like, "Well, what I had at the time was a pile of books that I might have read the intro for, maybe Wildly Chapter One, maybe, but I had a pile of books that I ended up feeling like shelf shame because I didn't have that time because the pace of my life didn't allow it because the measuring stick at the time wasn't measuring what would be the future me. It was only measuring the right now me. And therefore, I can't use that same measuring stick now. So, as you go through the course of your day and you wrap up with this episode for today, what I want you to do is just tap into that first piece is awareness, right? If I want things to change, I need to be aware of them. So I'm taking an inventory, not a judgment, I'm not taking out my red pen and a pass or fail, right? I am going through my life. I'm inventorying even how I go through the course of my day. Do I like my morning routine? Do I not like my morning routine? And am I sleeping enough at night? Am I not sleeping enough at night? And it doesn't have to be that polarizing, like good or bad, but just that shades of gray. Like, hey, let me just check in on these things. Do I like the way that I feed myself? Do I like the way I deal with stress? Do I like the way I express anger or don't? Like, let me just kind of check in. right? Have awareness, because when we have awareness, that's when we can change the measuring stick. That's when we can access what we want. That's when we can finally take those pottery classes that seemed like a someday. And now my entire family has like wonky shaped mugs, and I'm in the middle of making ornaments for friends for Christmas. I mean, and that's only because I want to. And that's only because I changed the pace of my life. And it's only because I evolved how I define success. So take a look around. What needs to change? What needs to evolve? What's working? What's not working? Because also, it doesn't all have to go out the window. It's sometimes in that awareness, we are identifying, like, actually, there are some things that are working around here. And that's where I actually recently came to, is looking around. It's like, wait a second. Wait a second. Why does this feel familiar? Because the life that I've spent the last few years building is a direct reflection of what I journaled all those years ago about someday, right? Someday this will be the pace of my day. Someday this is how I'll navigate clients. Someday this is the space that I'll have to do pottery, read the books, work out, travel for pleasure, whatever. So there are some things that are likely working in your life. And sometimes they get overshadowed by old comparison, present comparison, or even the fact that they might not be working. And the only way to change them is to take a look around and to see what's working and what's not working. So I'm wrapping it up because I think that it's important. As I said, comparison is the thief of joy. Oh, no, I have one more thing I wanted to read to you guys. And actually, my men's mastermind group, one of the guys passed this around, and I thought it was fabulous. So I'm going to read this to you. And it says, what a privilege to be tired from work you once prayed for. What a privilege to feel overwhelmed by growth you used to dream about. What a privilege to be challenged by a life you created on purpose. What a privilege to outgrow things you used to settle for. I love that. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes too. I got my homework to do. All right, guys, I'm signing off on this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this honest conversation, because that's what it's about. It's about having honest conversations with ourselves and tapping into honest conversations. That doesn't mean that the rah-rah and the yay of, feeling activated and feeling alive and pushing through and setting our goals isn't real. That's real, but we can hold two truths at the same time. Things can be good, and we can also want things to change, and that's perfectly fine. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Mindrise Podcast. Check out our show notes for details and to get in on the latest at Mindrise. Visit us on Instagram at the Mindrise